this video, I will talk about false positives and false negatives. I'll talk about type 1 errors and type 2 errors. If you've seen the previous videos, you're getting used to different kind of tables. Here we're looking at the difference between patients' results, you could say. Let's assume we're testing two different kind of blood pressure medications. Okay, so is there a difference between medication A or medication and medication B? Then yes, we have a true difference. If there is no difference in effect, we have no difference. However, as researchers, we have to interpret our findings. We have to make conclusions. That is what we write in the discussion in the conclusion of the abstract in the paper. There is a difference, or we could not find a difference, there was no difference, etc. That is our conclusion. So there are a number of options. Let's say, for instance, there is a difference between the two blood pressure medications. Okay, and we say there's a significant difference. Then we're correct here, right? We're correct. However, if there is no difference between the two medications and we still say, yes, they are different, there is a significant difference, we made a type 1 error. We call that alpha. We've actually overinterpreted our data, you could say. We've said there is a difference here, but there is no difference. That is not so uncommon in research, actually. People want to find something. They want to demonstrate significant differences because they have a feeling, which is partly true, that it's more easy to publish differences paper than papers without statistically significant differences. If instead there is a difference, but I say, no, there was no difference, okay, we've committed a beta error, a type 2 error. We failed to note a difference which is actually true. We failed to see it. We missed it. A type 2 error. Call this beta. However, if there is no difference between the two medications, they lowered the blood pressure just as much, both groups, and we say there's no difference between them. Okay, we're actually correct, right? So we can be correct if we state there is a difference when there is a true difference, or when we say there is no difference when there is no difference. But the problem is the type 1 error and here the type 2 error. This is one example to illustrate when we commit type 1 errors. We say there is a difference when there is no difference. In statistical significance testing, we usually use something we call p below 0.05. Okay, there should just be a 1 in 20 chance that we find a difference just by chance, just by random. However, if we look at a huge number of different comparisons, we compare many groups, looking at many outcomes, suddenly we will have very, very many comparisons. And some of these will turn out to be statistically significant just by chance. In this example, we use 4 different outcomes in the study. We look at the risk of death, the risk of heart failure, the risk of myocardial infarction, the risk of angina pectoris. And we look at 12 different subgroups. We have this one overall, we have this one males, this one females, this one younger, this one middle-aged, this one older, this one without diabetes, this one with diabetes, etc. And suddenly, a number of comparisons will become statistically significant just because we perform so many comparisons. Actually, we perform 48 comparisons. And now we're committing type 1 errors. So we could conclude in conclusion, 3 vessel disease was associated with heart failure, and poor ejection fraction increased the risk of angina pectoris in this or that subgroup. Type 2 errors is when a treatment is actually working. Well, there is a difference between 2 groups, but we didn't see it. We failed to see it, and we make the wrong conclusion. Why? Well, here are some of the reasons. For instance, perhaps the study is too small. When we compare 10 patients with antihypertensive medication A with 10 patients with medication B, we find no difference. But if we had compared 1,000 with 1,000, we could have seen the difference because it was rather slow. Or perhaps we're looking for the risk of death after a certain treatment. But if we just follow patients for 5 days, maybe we don't see anything. But if we follow them for 5 years, maybe we see a difference. Or maybe the medication dose is too low. We should have given them 50 milligram of the medication, but we just gave them 5 milligram. It doesn't mean that if we haven't seen a difference, that the medication has no effect. It's just we've given a too low dose to the patients. Finally, we have to consider that patients do not always take the medication and that not all outcomes are registered. Perhaps we're collecting data on outcomes, the risk of having type 2 diabetes through questionnaires. If nobody returns the questionnaire, we could make the interpretation, aha, there's no one with type 2 diabetes in a study, and then fail to note a difference. Add to that authors do not always send in their negative results. They do not submit papers with negative results, and there will be a lack of papers actually showing no difference. Statistical power is 1 minus beta, the risk of type 2 errors, 20%. And that means that most studies have and should have an 80% power to detect a difference. Thank you.